Ottokar II of Bohemia. Ottokar II Czech, Přemysl Otakar II. c. 1233 in Městec Králové, in Bohemia 26 August 1278 in Dürnkrut, in Lower Austria, the Iron and Golden King, was a member of the Přemyslid dynasty who reigned as King of Bohemia from 1253 until his death in 1278. He also held the titles of Margrave of Moravia from 1247, Duke of Austria from 1251, and Duke of Styria from 1260, as well as Duke of Carinthia and Landgrave of Carniola from 1269. With Ottokar's rule, the Přemyslids reached the peak of their power in the Holy Roman Empire. His expectations of the imperial crown, however, were never fulfilled. Biography. Ottokar was the second son of King Wenceslaus I of Bohemia, reigned 1230–1253. Through his mother Cunegund, daughter of Philip of Swabia, he was related to the Holy Roman Emperors of the Hohenstaufen dynasty, which became extinct in the male line upon the execution of King Conradin of Sicily in 1268. Named after his grandfather King Přemysl Otakar I, he was originally educated for the role of an ecclesiastical administrator, while his elder brother Vladislaus was designated heir of the Bohemian kingdom. He was possibly educated by the Bohemian chancellor Philip of Spanheim, who would later become a rival for the rule of the Duchy of Carinthia. Rise to power. His brother Vladislaus died in 1247. Ottokar suddenly became the heir to the Bohemian throne. According to popular oral tradition, he was profoundly shocked by his brother's death and did not involve himself in politics, becoming focused on hunting and drinking. His father appointed the new heir as Margrave of Moravia, and Ottokar took up residence in Biarino, where he was occupied with the reconstruction of the Moravian lands devastated by Mongol raids of 1242. In 1248, some discontented nobles enticed him into leading a rebellion against his father King Wenceslaus. During this rebellion, he was elected the younger King Městec Králové on 31 July 1248 and temporarily expelled his father from Prague Castle. Přemysl Otakar II held the title of King of Bohemia until November 1249. However, Pope Innocent Roman IV excommunicated Ottokar, whereafter Wenceslaus finally managed to defeat the rebels and imprisoned his son at Přemyslid Castle. Father and son eventually reconciled to assist the king's aim of acquiring the neighboring Duchy of Austria, where the last Babenberg Duke, Frederick Roman II, had been killed in the 1246 Battle of the Leitha River. King Wenceslaus had initially attempted to acquire Austria by marrying his heir, Vladislaus, to the last duke's niece Gertrude of Babenberg. That marriage came to an end after half a year with Vladislaus's death in January 1247, and in 1248 Gertrude married the Zarangian Margrave Hermann VI of Baden. Hermann, rejected by the Austrian nobility, could not establish his rule. Wenceslaus used this as pretext to invade Austria when Hermann died in 1250. According to some sources, the estates called upon him to restore order. Wenceslaus released Přemysl Otakar very soon, and in 1251 again made him Margrave of Moravia and installed him, with the approval of the Austrian nobles, as governor of Austria. The same year Ottokar entered Austria, where the estates acclaimed him as duke. To legitimize his position, Přemysl Otakar married the late Duke Frederick Roman II's sister Margaret of Babenberg, who was his senior by 30 years, and the widow of the Hohenstaufen King Henry Roman VII of Germany. Their marriage took place on 11 February 1252 at Hainburg. In 1253 King Wenceslaus died, and Přemysl Otakar succeeded his father as King of Bohemia. After the death of the German King Conrad Roman IV in 1254, while his son Conradin was still a minor, Ottokar also hoped to obtain the imperial dignity as King of the Romans for himself. However, his election bid was unsuccessful, and Count William Roman II of Holland, the German anti-king since 1247, was generally recognized. Building an empire. Feeling threatened by Ottokar's growing regional power beyond the Leitha River, his cousin King Bela Roman IV of Hungary challenged the young king. Bela formed a loose alliance with the Wittelsbach Duke Otto Roman II of Bavaria and tried to install his own son Stephen as Duke of Styria, which since 1192 had been ruled in personal union with Austria under the terms of the Georgianburg Pact of 1186. Papal mediation settled the conflict. The parties agreed that Ottokar would yield large parts of Styria to Bela in exchange for recognition of his right to the remainder of Austria. Subsequently, King Ottokar Roman II led the two crusade expeditions against the pagan Old Prussians 1254, 1255, and 1268. Königsberg, now Kaliningrad, Russia, founded in 1255 by the Teutonic Order, was named in his honor and later became the capital of the Duchy of Prussia. After a few years of peace, the conflict with Hungary resumed. Ottokar defeated the Hungarians in July 1260 at the Battle of Kressenbrunn, ending years of disputes over Styria with Bela Roman IV. Bela now ceded Styria back to Ottokar, and his claim to those territories was formally recognized by Richard of Cornwall. This peace agreement was also sealed by a royal marriage. Ottokar ended his marriage to Margaret and married Bela's young granddaughter Cunegunda of Halych, who became the mother of his children. The youngest of them became his only legitimate son, Wenceslaus Roman II. During the imperial interregnum of 1250 to 1273, Ottokar could increase his personal influence while Richard of Cornwall and Alfonso of Castile jostled to attain the imperial dignity. In 1266, he occupied the Edgerland in northwest Bohemia, and in 1268 he signed an inheritance treaty with the Sponheim Duke Ulrich Roman III of Carinthia, succeeding him in Carinthia, Carniola, and the Windic March the next year. In 1272 he also acquired Friuli. His rule was once again contested by the Hungarians on the field of battle. After another victory, Ottokar became the most powerful king within the empire. The path to the final battle. After Richard of Cornwall died in April 1272, and Pope Gregory X rejected the claims raised by Alfonso of Castile, a new election for the imperial German throne took place in 1273. However, the Bohemian king again failed to win the imperial crown, as the electors voted for the little Count Rudolf of Habsburg, Ottokar's last and finally victorious rival. Přemysl Otakar refused to acknowledge Rudolf's election and urged the Pope to adopt a similar policy. At a convention of the Imperial Diet at Nuremberg in 1274, Rudolf decreed that all imperial lands that had changed hands since the death of the last Hohenstaufen Emperor Frederick Roman II must be returned to the crown. This would have deprived Ottokar not only of the Edgerland, but also of the Austrian, Styrian, and Carinthian duchies. In 1275 Rudolf placed Ottokar under the imperial ban and besieged his Hofburg residence in Vienna, while a rebellion led by the Wittelsbach noble Zavis of Falkenstein disrupted the Bohemian lands. This compelled Přemysl Otakar in November 1276 sign a new treaty by which he gave up all claims to Austria and the neighboring duchies, retaining for himself only Bohemia and Moravia. Ottokar's son Wenceslaus became betrothed to Rudolf's daughter Judith. There followed an uneasy peace. 2 years later, the Bohemian king made a last attempt to recover his lost lands by force. Přemysl Otakar again found allies in Bavaria, Brandenburg, and Poland. He collected a large army to meet the forces of Rudolf and his ally King Ladislaus Roman IV of Hungary in the battle on the Marchfeld on 26 August 1278, where he was defeated and killed. Rudolf had his body laid out in state at the Minorites Church in Vienna. In 1297, Ottokar's mortal remains were finally transferred to St. Vitus Cathedral in Prague. His 6-year-old son Wenceslaus Roman II succeeded him as King of Bohemia. Marriage and children. On 11 February 1252, Přemysl Otakar Roman II married Margaret of Austria. Margaret was 26 years older than him, and the couple's childless marriage ended with an annulment. On 25 October 1261, Ottokar married Cunegunda of Slavonia. They probably had 4 children. Henry 1262–1263. Cunegund January 1265 – 27 November 1321. Married Boleslaus Roman II of Masovia. Agnes 5 September 1269 – 17 May 1296. Married Rudolf Roman II, Duke of Austria. Wenceslaus Roman II 17 September 1271 – 21 June 1305. Ottokar also had 2 extramarital sons and daughters. The most important was his firstborn, Nicholas. He was never accepted as heir apparent to the Bohemian crown by the sitting pope. Other illegitimate children include John, provost of Vyšehrad chapter. Legacy. Přemysl Otakar is considered one of the greatest kings of Bohemia, along with Charles Roman IV. He was a founder of many new towns, about 30 not only in Bohemia, Moravia, and Silesia, but also in Austria and Styria, and incorporated many existing settlements through civic charters, giving them new privileges. He was a strong proponent of trade, law, and order. Furthermore, he instituted open immigration policies through which skilled German-speaking immigrants settled in major cities throughout his domains. As noted, the historic East Prussian city of Königsberg, King's Mountain, was named in his honor as a tribute to his support of the Teutonic Knights in their war with the pagan Old Prussians. As Czech traditional law was different from that of his other domains, many principles introduced during his reign formed core of the Czech law for the following centuries. From his time stems the oldest preserved source of Czech law. By supporting the city of Jihlava German Iglau with its mines, he laid foundation of the silver wealth of later Bohemian kings. Privileges of civic charters usually excluded the towns from obedience to the traditional courts held by members of nobility. This can be seen as a step towards equality and a precursor of modern civil law. In the country, Ottokar's introduction of the law of emphyteuses into the Czech law is sometimes interpreted as Germanization. In fact, it was creative, for it freed subjects from feudal obligations, except for rent and tax if such was levied. Free selling and leaving of estates could also be bought and soon became common. Thus, Ottokar can be reckoned an early Bohemian ruler who furthered Bohemian rights in medieval times. This change of legal environment in Bohemia was introduced by systematic founding of villages chartered under this law. He issued also a general privilege, the Jews 1254, which established principles of integration of the Jews into the Czech society until 1848. The Jews were now eligible for various positions, such as servants of crown, thereby being somewhat less subject to discrimination. Instead of being able to claim only the support of individual lords, the Jews could from then on claim support of any royal officer. Ottokar followed with a systematic policy of strengthening his domains by building fortifications. Besides supporting towns, he built many fortresses himself: Zivakov Castle, Krivoklad Castle or Bezdez Castle in Bohemia, and the famed Hofburg Palace in Vienna, and also induced his vassals to build castles. A sign of rising strength of Bohemia, it was also a reaction to the Mongol raids of the 13th century. Sibylla Roman IV of Hungary. Conflict for the title of ownership to these fortified places built by members of nobility was probably the source of an uprising in 1276, which cost Ottokar the Austrian lands, and 2 years later in an attempt for reconquest his life. Some of the fortresses built by Ottokar were for centuries the strongest in Bohemia. Ironically, Bezdez Castle served as a prison for his son Wenceslaus Roman II of Bohemia for a short time after Ottokar's death. The castle housed Bohemian legal records, zemsk and many spiritual and temporal treasures during the destructive civil strife of the Hussite Wars 1419–1434 in Bohemia. It was conquered in 1620. Before his conflict with Rudolf of Habsburg, Ottokar exacted influence over a number of relatives, allies, and vassals in Germany, such as the Margraviate of Brandenburg and spiritual principalities, including the Archbishopric of Salzburg and the Patriarchate of Aquileia. The death of Conradin in 1268, he was an heir of the House of Hohenstaufen's claim to the imperial crown. However, he did not raise this claim, remaining content with informal influence in Germany. In 1267, he was appointed protector of the royal domains of the Holy Roman Empire east of the Rhine by the German king Richard of Cornwall. He held this office till 1273. Ottokar is a significant figure in history and legend. In the Divine Comedy by Dante, Ottokar is seen outside the gates of Purgatory in amiable companionship with his imperial rival Rudolf. He is also the protagonist of a tragedy by the 19th-century Austrian playwright Franz Grillparzer, titled König Ottokar's Glückende. There is a statue dedicated to him,